They found 16-inch footprints in the forest. What happened next will shock you. The scream in the forest. Deep in the mountains of Northern California, a logger named Jerry Crew arrived at work one October morning in 1958. The sun had barely risen. Mist hung between the tall trees like ghosts. Jerry walked toward his bulldozer, ready for another day of work. Then he stopped cold. Huge footprints covered the ground around his machine. They were enormous, much bigger than any human foot. Each print measured 16 inches long. The tracks went on and on, disappearing into the dark forest. Jerry's heart pounded. What kind of creature could make prints this big? He wasn't the first person to find strange tracks in the woods. And he wouldn't be the last. This was just one chapter in a mystery that goes back hundreds, maybe thousands of years. A mystery about a creature that might be hiding in America's deepest forests right now. A creature we call Bigfoot. The ancient stories. Long before Jerry Crew found those giant footprints, long before America had its name, Native American tribes told stories around their fires. Stories about wild men who lived in the mountains. Stories passed down from grandparents to grandchildren for generations. The Lummi people of Washington state called them Tsemekwes. The Salish tribes spoke of Sasquatch, a word that means wild man or hairy man in their language. The Spokane tribe warned their children about giants in the woods. The Yakima people carved pictures of these creatures into rocks. These weren't just scary bedtime stories. The elders spoke about these beings as if they were real as bears or wolves. The stories described tall, powerful creatures covered in dark hair. They walked on two legs like humans, but were much bigger and stronger. Some tribes said they were 7 feet tall. Others claimed they towered at 8, 9, or even 10 feet high. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. Their screams echoed through the valleys, sounds unlike any animal people knew. Some tribes feared them, others respected them. A few even believed the hairy giants were peaceful, avoiding humans whenever possible. But were these stories true? Or were they just legends told to keep children from wandering too far into the dangerous wilderness? The question would haunt America for the next 200 years. When the settlers arrived. As pioneers moved west in the 1800s, they brought their own stories. Stories from Europe about wild men who lived beyond civilization. When they reached the thick forests of the Pacific Northwest, something strange happened. They started seeing things. In 1847, a painter named Paul Kane was traveling through Canada near the Rocky Mountains. Local people told him about a creature they called skookooms. They described hairy giants who lived high in the mountains and stole salmon from fishermen at night. Then, in July 1884, something incredible happened near Yale, British Columbia. A train crew spotted a strange creature near the tracks. It was hairy, walked on 2 legs, and looked almost human. But not quite. The crew managed to capture it. Newspapers called the creature Jacko. They said it was 4 feet 7 inches tall, covered in black hair, and incredibly strong. The crew planned to send Jacko to a museum. But then, the creature disappeared. No one knows what happened. Did Jacko escape? Was the whole story made up? To this day, nobody knows for sure. More reports kept coming. In 1924, a group of miners was working in the Cascade Mountains of Washington state, near a place called Mount St. Helens. They stayed in a small cabin deep in the woods, far from any town. One night, something attacked them. The night that changed everything. Fred Beck and his 4 friends were inside their cabin on July 12, 1924. Darkness had fallen over the forest. Suddenly they heard sounds outside, heavy footsteps, thud, thud, thud. Then, bang! Something huge slammed against the cabin wall. "What was that?" one of the miners shouted. Bang! Bang! Another strike, and another. The whole cabin shook. The men grabbed their rifles and looked out the windows. In the moonlight, they saw them. Massive, hairy creatures surrounded the cabin. They were taller than any man, maybe 7 feet tall. Their arms were long and powerful, and they were angry. The creatures threw rocks at the cabin. They beat on the walls with their giant fists. The miners fired their guns into the air, trying to scare the creatures away. But the attack continued for hours. All night long, the miners huddled inside, terrified. Would the creatures break through the walls? Would they smash down the door? Finally, as the sun began to rise, the sounds stopped. The creatures melted back into the forest. The miners didn't waste any time. They packed up everything they could carry and ran. They never returned to that canyon. Newspapers called it the Ape Canyon attack. People came from miles around to see the cabin and hear the miners' story. Some believed them. Others laughed and said they were crazy or drunk. But Fred Beck never changed his story. Until his death many years later, he swore that giant, hairy men had attacked his cabin that night. Was he telling the truth? The footprints that started it all. 34 years passed. The Ape Canyon story became just another strange tale from the old days. People mostly forgot about hairy giants in the woods. Then came that foggy morning in 1958, when Jerry Crew found the enormous footprints. Jerry worked for a logging company in Bluff Creek, California. The company was building a road through the wilderness. For weeks, the workers had been finding strange tracks around their equipment. At first, they joked about it. Someone's playing a prank, they figured. But the tracks kept appearing. And they were everywhere. On October 1st, 1958, Jerry decided he had seen enough. He made a cast of one of the footprints using plaster. Then he called the local newspaper. The Humboldt Times sent a reporter and photographer. When the newspaper printed Jerry's story and a picture of him holding the huge plaster footprint, something amazing happened. The story exploded across America. Newspapers from New York to Los Angeles picked it up. Radio stations talked about it. Television news showed Jerry's plaster cast. Everyone wanted to know what made those tracks. That's when the name Bigfoot was born. A journalist looked at the huge prints and thought, "That's one big foot." The name stuck. From that day forward, America's hairy monster had a name everyone could remember. But here's where the story gets complicated. Years later, a man named Ray Wallace claimed that he made the footprints. He said he carved fake wooden feet and strapped them to his boots as a joke on the logging crew. After Ray died in 2002, his family showed reporters the fake wooden feet. Some people said, "See? It was all a hoax. Case closed." But was it really that simple? Other workers at Bluff Creek swore they saw real tracks before Ray ever worked there. Jerry Crew always insisted the prints he found were real, and Ray Wallace was known for making up stories and exaggerating. Was he lying about creating the prints just to get attention? The truth remains a mystery. What isn't a mystery is what happened next. Because 9 years after Jerry's discovery, someone captured something on camera that would shock the world. The film that changed everything. October 20th, 1967, Friday afternoon. 2 men on horseback rode along Bluff Creek, the same area where Jerry Crew had found his famous footprints. Their names were Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Roger was obsessed with finding Bigfoot. He had written a book about the creature and spent years searching for proof. Bob was his friend, a tough cowboy who didn't scare easily. They rounded a bend in the creek. Their horses suddenly reared up, whinnying in fear. That's when the men saw it. A large, dark figure crouched by the water. It stood up. Roger's heart nearly exploded. He grabbed his camera and jumped off his spooked horse. His hands shook as he fumbled to turn on the camera. The figure started walking away, moving toward the tree line. "Cover me!" Roger shouted to Bob as he started filming. The creature walked on 2 legs with long, powerful strides. It was massive. Later estimates said about 7 feet tall and over 500 pounds. Thick, dark hair covered its entire body. Its arms were long, swinging with each step. Then it turned and looked directly at them. For just a few seconds, the creature's face was visible. It looked almost human, but different. The brow was heavy. The face was flat. Its expression seemed calm, almost curious. Then it turned away and disappeared into the forest. The entire encounter lasted less than a minute, but Roger had captured 59.5 seconds of shaky film footage, just under 1 minute that would be argued about, studied, and debated for the next 50 years, and counting. Roger and Bob examined the spot where the creature had walked. They found footprints, deep footprints. The weight had pressed them firmly into the ground. They made plaster casts of the prints, just like Jerry Crew had done years before. When Roger showed his film to the world, reactions were fierce. Scientists examined every frame. Some said it was clearly a man in a costume. Others weren't so sure. The creature's muscles seemed to move under the skin. The way it walked looked natural, not like someone shuffling in a suit. The arms were longer than human arms. Could someone fake all of that in 1967? Bob Gimlin, the cowboy who was there that day, never made much money from the film. He could have gotten rich claiming it was real if he helped fake it. But he always told the same story, never changing a single detail. "I know what I saw," Bob said decades later. "That was no man in a suit." Is the Patterson-Gimlin film real? To this day, no one has definitively proved it's fake, and no one has definitively proved it's real either. The mystery continues. The search goes on. After the famous film, Bigfoot fever swept across America. Thousands of people claimed to see the creature. Some reports seemed believable, others were clearly pranks or mistakes, but some stories were harder to explain away. In 1976, a woman named Teresa Brim was driving near Wantage, New Jersey. Yes, New Jersey, far from the Pacific Northwest. She saw something huge and hairy cross the road in front of her car. She described it as 7 feet tall with reddish-brown hair. Several other people in the area reported similar sightings that year. In 1995, a Forest Patrol officer in Washington state found huge footprints in an area where no humans had been reported. The prints were in soft mud, showing clear details of toes and the ball of the foot. Experts examined the prints and said they would be extremely difficult to fake in that location. In 2007, hunters in Pennsylvania found a massive nest-like structure made of branches high in the trees. The construction was so complex and heavy that experts couldn't figure out how a human could have built it without equipment. Was it a Bigfoot nest? Reports come from almost every state. Washington state has the most, more than 2,000 reported sightings. California is second. Oregon is third. But people have claimed to see Bigfoot in Florida, Ohio, Texas, and even Maine. The stories follow patterns. Witnesses describe a creature 7 to 9 feet tall, covered in dark brown, reddish or black hair, walking upright on 2 legs, having a strong, terrible smell. Some call it a skunk-like odor. Moving silently through the forest despite its size, having glowing eyes that shine in the dark. Could all these people be wrong? Lying? Confused? Maybe. Humans make mistakes. We see bears standing up and think they're monsters. We misidentify known animals in bad lighting. Our imaginations play tricks on us, especially in the spooky forest at night. But what if even just one of these stories is true? What science says. Scientists have strong opinions about Bigfoot. Most don't believe the creature exists. They point out major problems with the Bigfoot theory. Problem 1. No bodies. If Bigfoot is real, why hasn't anyone ever found a dead one? Why has no hunter ever shot one and brought it back? Where are the bones? Problem 2. Not enough food. A creature that big would need to eat massive amounts of food every single day. Thousands of Bigfoots would need to live in the forests to maintain a breeding population. How could they all stay hidden? Problem 3. Modern technology. We have cameras everywhere now. Satellites can see tiny details from space. Motion-detecting trail cameras cover the forests. Why hasn't someone captured clear, definite proof? Problem 4. Similar creatures don't hide. Gorillas are huge and powerful, but we found them. Scientists have documented all the great apes. Why would Bigfoot be so much better at hiding? These are good questions. Hard questions. But a few scientists keep an open mind. They point out that new species are discovered every year. Giant squids were thought to be myths until we finally found one. Mountain gorillas weren't confirmed until 1902. The coelacanth fish was thought to be extinct for 66 million years, until fishermen caught one in 1938. Nature is big. Forests are dense. Maybe, just maybe, something could still be hiding out there. Dr. Jane Goodall, the famous scientist who studied chimpanzees, said she's open to the possibility. In interviews, she explained that local people in many countries report seeing ape-like creatures. Could they all be wrong? I'm a romantic, Dr. Goodall said, so I always wanted them to exist. The mystery today. It's 2025 now. Jerry Crew's footprint discovery was 67 years ago. The Patterson-Gimlin film was shot 58 years ago. We've sent people to the moon. We've built computers that fit in our pockets. We've mapped the human genome. But we still haven't definitively answered the Bigfoot question. Organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization collect reports and investigate sightings. They've documented thousands of encounters. They set up cameras, audio recorders, and expeditions deep into the wilderness. Television shows search for Bigfoot in remote locations. Documentaries examine the evidence. Books fill library shelves. Podcasts debate the mystery. Some people dedicate their entire lives to finding proof. They spend weekends camping in remote forests, hoping for a glimpse. They listen for strange howls and wood knocks, sounds that many researchers believe Bigfoot makes to communicate. They search for footprints, hair samples, and other evidence. Why? Why do people keep looking? Maybe it's because we want to believe. We want mysteries. We want the world to still have hidden corners where impossible things exist. We want proof that we don't know everything yet. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because somewhere deep down, we sense something is really out there. The question that remains. Imagine you're walking through a forest. The trees are so thick that sunlight barely reaches the ground. It's quiet, too quiet. No birds sing, no squirrels chatter. Then you hear something. Heavy footsteps, breaking branches. The sound is close, but you can't see anything through the thick brush. Your heart races, you freeze. The footsteps stop too. Is something watching you? You scan the shadows between the trees. Nothing. But the feeling doesn't go away. The feeling that you're not alone, that something massive and powerful is standing just out of sight, studying you the same way you're trying to spot it. Then you see them. Huge footprints in the soft earth. Fresh ones. They lead deeper into the forest. Do you follow them? Or do you run? This is the question that has fascinated Americans for over 150 years, since those first Native American stories around the fire, since the miners fled from Ape Canyon, since Jerry Crew found those impossible tracks, since Roger Patterson captured those 59.5 seconds of film that scientists still can't explain. Is Bigfoot real? Thousands of people have reported seeing something in the woods, something that shouldn't exist. Are they all lying? All mistaken? Or did they really see something science hasn't discovered yet? Maybe Bigfoot is just a legend, a story we tell ourselves to make the world more exciting. Maybe it's a combination of misidentified bears, shadows, and overactive imaginations. Or maybe late at night, when you're asleep in your warm bed, a hairy giant stands in the forest near your town. Maybe it watches the lights of human homes from the safety of the dark trees. Maybe it's intelligent enough to avoid our cameras and clever enough to hide its tracks. Maybe it knows that staying hidden is the only way to survive in a world dominated by humans. Maybe right now, as you read these words, Bigfoot is out there, standing in the shadows, watching, waiting. The footprints in Bluff Creek. The film that shocked the world. The thousands of sightings from people who swear they saw something impossible. What if they're all telling the truth? The next time you're in the woods and you hear a strange sound, a howl that doesn't match any animal you know, or heavy footsteps moving through the brush, look carefully at the shadows between the trees. You might just see something looking back. And if you find huge footprints in the mud, footprints that couldn't possibly be human, ask yourself this final question. If Bigfoot isn't real, what made those tracks? The legend continues. The search goes on. And somewhere in America's deepest forests, the mystery waits to be solved. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe down below, and we'll see you next time